Vestara Khai was a member of the lost tribe of the Sith born in 27 ABY. This group of Sith were stranded and isolated on the planet of Kesh ever since their ship crashed during the Great Hyperspace War thousands of years earlier. At just 14 years old, she was contacted by the Sith Meditation Sphere ship when it arrived on Kesh. With sudden access off-world, the Lost Tribe used piracy to build a small fleet, also fixing their crashed ship. In 43 ABY, at the age of 16, she joined a strike team to hunt down Luke Skywalker and recover ship, who had vanished. They ended up interacting with the entity Abeloth on the way, whom Vestara recognized as being dangerous. Abeloth greatly thinned their numbers, and the remaining Sith, except Vestara, were killed by Luke and Ben Skywalker at Sinkhole Station. She herself fled to Dathomir, hiding among the many other Force sensitives and sending a message to her. However, Luke and Ben tracked her, and the two captured her. The Sith then arrived, forced Luke and Ben to surrender, and demanded an alliance. The two Jedi accepted. They all then found Abeloth on her planet, but the Sith betrayed the Jedi during the ensuing battle. Though they killed one of Abeloth's forms, they were unsuccessful in killing Luke or Ben. Vestara went with the Jedi as a spy, and they traveled to the moon Piter to hunt one of Abeloth's forms. Abeloth killed most of the Sith who followed them, then captured Luke and Ben. She let High Lord Sarasu Talon live, as he was beginning the process of transforming into a sort of entity like herself. Vestara then killed Talon to prevent this, so she had to run with Luke and Ben in order to escape retribution from them. Vestara developed a romance with Ben, although she initially kept her loyalties to the lost tribe of the Sith. The three survived attacks from the Sith, and again fought Abeloth on Nam Chorios. Vestara was later forced to kill her own father during a large Jedi-Sith battle on Droman Kos in self-defense, and she decided to become a Jedi. However, she quickly realized that her strong passion prevented her from being a good Jedi, and secretly abandoned that choice. While she helped to kill the Sith on Coruscant in order to eliminate those who wanted her dead, she was captured. Hoping to escape the revenge, she lied her way out of it and took on a mission to kill Alana Solo, who was prophesied to become the Jedi Queen. She failed, but was captured by Abeloth and taken to Abeloth's planet before the Sith could kill her. She and Ben were both tempted to become immortal entities, thus giving Abeloth a family of fellow gods. They both resisted and worked together to defeat Abeloth. Jaina Solo arrived shortly after, telling Ben about Vestara's attempt to kill Alana. Thus, she fled aboard ship to go hide from the Jedi. Kit Fisto was a Nautolan Jedi who was in his prime during the Clone Wars. While viewed by many as a great Jedi, he did break the code and went into a secret relationship with Jedi Knight Aayla Secura. He trained two Padawans, both Mon Calamari. The first was Bant Irin, a childhood friend of Obi-Wan Kenobi. The second, Nadar Veb, was killed by General Grievous on Vasek shortly after he was knighted at the beginning of the Clone Wars. Like almost all Jedi of his era, Fisto continued to submit to the Senate once the Clone Wars started, serving the Republic as a general. He helped in the initial conflict, where the Republic successfully attacked Geonosius. He then assisted the Mon Calamari in quashing a group of Quarren freedom fighters on Mon Cala during the war's early months. He clashed blades with General Grievous on Vasek while hunting for Newt Gunray, but his former Padawan Nadar Veb did not survive the encounter. He successfully uncovered a deception by the leadership on Ord Cestus, who had created a seemingly deadly war droid to sell to the CIS. In reality, the droid design was impossible, because the Dasha eels that were supposed to make them so deadly were actually peaceful. For all his achievements, Fisto was given a spot on the Jedi Council. He later fought on Mon Cala again, and again defeated a Quarren uprising, He fought in the Battle of Coruscant, failing to protect Chancellor Palpatine just before the war ended. He then joined Mace Windu, Saesi Tiin, and Aegon Kolar in a confrontation against the newly revealed Sith Lord, Darth Sidious. In their ensuing duel, Kit Fisto quickly met his end. It was used as a demonstration of Jedi treachery, leading to the Great Jedi Purge. While Kit Fisto and Vestara Khai are different in many ways, they are connected by the fascinating similarity that is the idea of selflessly serving through the dark side. While the dark side is often associated, correctly so, with the pursuit of power selfishly, Kit Fisto dabbles in it, skirting closer to the dark side. He does this to better serve the light, not unlike Mace Windu. This is discussed further in his lightsaber abilities. Vestara Khai, on the other hand, for much of her life, selflessly served the lost tribe of the Sith. Despite being on the dark side, she focused much more on being loyal to the tribe than benefiting herself. This obviously changed once they became determined to hunt her down and kill her. Anyway, without further ado, I present Vestara Khai versus Kit Fisto. Vestara Khai will have her lightsaber, her shikar, and a parang. Her skills will be measured at the time immediately after the Fate of the Jedi book series, considering her as of 44 ABY. Kit Fisto gets his usual green lightsaber, which is his only notable weapon. He will be considered as of the end of the Clone Wars, just before his death. The two will be fighting in a currently empty hangar bay in the middle of a large city on Elrude. It's relatively small, features some crates awaiting pickup, and a balcony and one wall for maintenance above docked ships. Why, you ask? Clarifying location is important, and I do want to make it seem sufficiently random. Vestara Khai is a human female who is about 16 years old. She is in what the lost tribe of the Sith considered to be ideal physical condition. While this designation is somewhat ambiguous, she nevertheless ran and fought Sith in the Jedi Temple for more than an hour before finally succumbing to fatigue, injury, and the superior numbers of her pursuers. While this is obviously very much a result of the power of the Force, it still speaks highly for her. She is relatively fast and agile, often utilizing acrobatics. While strength might not be her forte, she has still fought against a power duelist, her friend Ari Ross, without being overwhelmed by his superior strength. Like most Jedi and Sith, Vestara is in good physical condition on the whole. She possesses great stamina, good agility, but less than ideal strength. Fisto is comparable in many of these aspects. Though he is a Nautolan male who is perhaps 20 years older than Vestara, he still exhibits many of her attributes. Nautolans are an athletic species who are also much more flexible than humans, and this is only augmented by Fisto's Jedi skills. Described by Obi-Wan Kenobi as a living martial hurricane, Fisto is excellent with acrobatics and athletics. While he isn't particularly strong, he is still held up against the strength of General Grievous. Though being a Nautolan grants natural toughness, he succumbed to his wounds relatively easily after being cut by Asajj Ventress during a duel on Ord Cestus. However, he does boast several other unique advantages based on his species. The first is that he is completely amphibious, just as capable underwater as he is on land. He also has great vision in the dark, but that doesn't really matter in a well-lit environment either. The latter advantage is a bit more versatile. Through his tentacles, Fisto can sense pheromones, giving him biological emotion reading. While not telepathic like a bouncer or a Tachi, and not as all-knowing as a Godel or a Nemph, Fisto can still typically get a good sense for the emotions of an opponent. While it is better underwater, it is still a viable ability on land. Fisto's toughness and acrobatics both come across as his greatest strength, and his ability to sense pheromones is also a great perk. Despite the difference in age and species, Kit and Vestara stack up similarly when it comes to strength and speed. Both are excellent with acrobatics. Both can still hold their own against stronger opponents, even if they aren't power duelists themselves. Fisto's aquatic nature isn't going to matter on this battleground, and Vestara also probably has the greater stamina. However, Fisto does have his advantages. First, I think he still is the superior when it comes to speed and acrobatic ability. It isn't a huge gap, but it's still an edge. Second, Fisto has his pheromones, which can give him some help in predicting Khai and her attacks. Finally, he is probably tougher, which does provide an aspect of defense against kicks, punches, or even glancing blows from a lightsaber. It's close, but Kit's advantages are more numerous than Vestara's. It's the combination of these edges that is enough to convince me to give Kit Fisto the edge when it comes to physical capabilities. Vestara Khai has a red-bladed lightsaber with a crystal made from lignin ore. This is supposed to make it stronger. Funnily enough, like Fisto's saber, her lightsaber works underwater. Otherwise, it is a fairly average weapon. However, that is where Vestara, being normal in terms of weapons, ends. Like most members of the Lost Tribe of the Sith, she almost always carries 2 additional weapons. The first, a parang, is a curved-bladed sword of about the length of an arm. It isn't all that spectacular, although it often has a decorated hilt. While sometimes metal, it is also often made from glass. Neither variants are resistant to lightsabers, so it isn't useful as a weapon to duel with. It can be used as a boomerang, giving added versatility. Regardless, it's another option that can be used on the offensive. The shikar is also similar, a glass dagger. While it may not be at all suitable for dueling, it's a very subtle secondary weapon that has been used for many a killing blow. While she has used other weapons, including grenades when ambushing the Skywalkers at Sinkhole Station, they don't seem to be part of her default gear. Vestara's robes are more for tradition than functional protection, as the Lost Tribe values beauty and aesthetics as much as practicality. Regardless, they don't seem to hinder her movement, and certainly aren't a setback. Kit Fisto has a green lightsaber of a fairly standard design. The hilt is ridged, cylindrical, and curves to a point at the end. It is somewhat notable for a rare feature that allows it to function without issue underwater. Like almost all Jedi of his era, he wears the traditional brown Jedi robes without any. Comparatively, both of them are essentially the same when it comes to their robes and lightsaber. While working underwater is a handy feature, it isn't that relevant in this fight. Any benefit gained by the shapes of the hilts is negligible, as neither are too odd. I haven't seen all that much evidence to convince me that the parang could be all that major of a player, although it always helps to have an extra weapon. On the other hand, though, shikars are deadly. They're small enough to go unnoticed, and have been quite deadly on multiple occasions. The shikar is a more subtle weapon, which gives a major advantage to Vestara. I think it should be obvious enough that she is the better armed, as Kit has no advantage in this comparison. Vestara Khai is clearly the superior in terms of armament. Despite her youth and relative inexperience, Vestara Khai has quite high martial skills. She has consistently outdueled Sith sabers, whom Luke Skywalker considered to be comparable to Jedi Knights. However, their feats and other duels give me the impression that they are marginally better. She has also defeated her own father, who seems to be one of the better Sith sabers, perhaps comparable to some High Counselors. Arguably her most impressive feat is that she has dealt with Grandmaster Luke Skywalker and High Lord Sarasu Talon without getting squashed like a bug. However, she was almost killed by Valen Horn, a mere Jedi Knight, despite the help of Ben Skywalker. She is undeniably talented and has consistently beaten her friend Ari Ross. She is also fully ambidextrous and boasts precision in her blade work, once cutting off the breath mask of unsuspecting Jedi Knight Natua Wan in order to provide something for Arak Shuri to feed on, thus saving her lover Ben Skywalker. She is also very fast, successfully stabbing High Lord Sarasu Talon. While he was feeding from one of Abeloth's tentacles at the time, it nevertheless speaks to her skill that she could attack before anyone else, including Abeloth, could react. She is also skilled in unarmed combat. In terms of style, it's not entirely possible to definitively categorize her into a form. This is mostly because the lost tribe of the Sith was lost and isolated since the Great Hyperspace War. While her style somewhat aligns with the Xi'an form of lightsaber combat, which may or may not have been known by Sith at that time, it is also possible that she fought with an entirely different form that the lost tribe of the Sith developed on their own. She is a fighter who leans on the defensive side, typically letting her opponent dominate the fight, even when she is the superior. She is also a cunning tactician, using unique tactics to defeat opponents. Most notably, she trampled a Rancor beneath her own Rancor. The method that she used to accomplish this is unknown. She has also killed a Sill in order to send a wave in the Force and stun attacking Sith. Not only does this show great ingenuity, it also demonstrates that she will do whatever it takes to win. However, when she can't win, she isn't going to get caught up in her own overconfidence or fight for pride. Instead, Vestara will acknowledge a better fighter, like, say, Grandmaster Luke Skywalker, and try to stay alive. Despite this, in a duel to the death, she will fight it out to the bitter end. She's fairly vigilant, although she was caught by surprise when Abeloth caused a plant to ensnare her when she was charging to attack. However, that's Abeloth. On the whole, Vestara Khai probably isn't the most talented fighter, mostly because of her youth. However, when the fight is over, she often finds a way to come out on top through her smart style and clever tactics. Kit Fisto is a Jedi High Counselor, so based on that alone, we have reason to believe that he is a highly skilled martial artist. His resume further reinforces this notion. He fought Grievous and essentially won, although the arrival of Magna Guard shifted the balance and forced his retreat. He also crossed blades with Asajj Ventress, though he was defeated. Still, Ventress had an advantage in that she was able to see him fight beforehand. He was also beat by Darth Sidious, though he fought for longer than two of his contemporaries, Agen Kolar and Saisi Teen. Perhaps what speaks most to Fisto's power is when he sparred with Obi-Wan Kenobi for practice, while on the way towards Cestus. After 2 hours of dueling with each other, Kenobi concluded Fisto to be his superior. Of course, Kenobi could have improved faster throughout the Clone Wars, this isn't necessarily accurate as of our date. Style-wise, Kit Fisto epitomizes the Form 1 technique. This style, Shi-Cho, was the first to be developed. It is simple but random, which acts as both a benefit and a drawback. It is capable when it comes to dealing with blasters and lightsabers, although it is more specialized in dealing with larger groups of opponents and disarming adversaries. To maximize the effectiveness of this simplistic style, Kit Fisto gives himself over to the currents of the Force. Skirting dangerously close to the dark side in his own unique way, Fisto considers this a necessary sacrifice. He risks himself, his very spirit, in order to fulfill his sense of duty. Bringing himself closer to the edge, giving into the Force, provides an extreme aspect of randomness, which elevates his style to an extremely higher level. He is mostly an offensive duelist and is somewhat reckless.
He is good at exploiting openings, and though he couldn't get past Kenobi's defenses after 2 hours, he had handicapped himself during their practice. Furthermore, I would suggest that he took a more conservative approach than he normally would in order to spar for longer. On the other side of things, when he needs to play defense, Kit Fisto is still quite reliable. He's not great, but he's capable. Still, his offense is often so overwhelming that sometimes his opponents don't even attempt an attack. Perhaps the most impressive thing about Kit Fisto is that the examples of single combat that I gave are not actually his strong suit. Rather, Fisto focuses on dealing with multiple opponents, as is the way of Form 1. Obviously, he's not incompetent 1v1, it's just that he's even better dealing with groups. He also knows some of the Ataru style, which he incorporates to a minor extent. This includes using kicks and punches, incorporating acrobatics into his attacks, and dodging on defense rather than parrying head-on. Fisto is also skilled with other techniques and weapons. He is capable with fighting with 2 lightsabers, as evidenced in his duel with General Grievous. This is likely taken from his Ataru experience. While attempting to manipulate leadership on Ord Cestus by posing as a Dark Jedi, he also used a light whip capably. He's even used a pair of handcuffs as weapons. These many abilities make him a well-rounded duelist. On the whole, Kit Fisto is an excellent lightsaber duelist who elevates Shicho to its highest level, creating a very impressive offensive. His defense is only weak when in comparison to this offense. He prefers to duel very aggressively. These are 2 talented duelists with very different philosophies. Khai, defense, Fisto, offense. It goes without saying that in a pure duel, Fisto would strike first and do almost all of the attacking. Vestara is more than willing for a duel to go like this, and she's willing to let Fisto control their battle. Her approach is built to beat someone like Fisto, however. She'll let her opponent take over and get a sense of confidence, even as she waits for an opening to present itself, allowing herself to win in a single strike. This preys on opponents who are reckless and instinctive. Fisto is both, to a high extent. Khai might have the superior tactical approach, but that doesn't change the fact that Fisto's raw talent is extreme. Especially by giving himself to the Force, he is truly a great duelist. Just because Khai gives ground and lets Fisto control the nature of the fight doesn't mean that our defenses are impenetrable. Against a skilled offensive like that of Kit Fisto, it is very much possible that his skill gets right past her defenses before she can get an opportunity. Furthermore, it's not guaranteed that her attack even goes through. Even against her highly distracted father, and Valen Horn, who is already engaged in a duel, she was unable to immediately capitalize in both situations. Against Fisto in a pure duel, I doubt Khai's martial skill would be enough to hold him off for long enough to make a successful attack. Kit Fisto is just too good. Kit Fisto gets the edge for martial skills. Vestara Khai has demonstrated high levels of skill in the Force, and at the age of just 16, the Sith meditation sphere named Ship dubbed her a Sith Lord. Ship also seemed to show a connection with her on multiple occasions, contacting her instead of the many other Sith Lords on Kesh. Grandmaster Luke Skywalker has also acknowledged her strong connection to the Force, and even took her on as an apprentice. Vestara often chooses to use the Force when she wants to avoid an actual confrontation, and she will use it to keep her enemies at a distance, holding them off to allow an escape.
When not using it to run away, she also uses it extremely well when combining it with her lightsaber sequences. When in a duel with Vestara and Lady Rhea, Luke commented that they use telekinesis as easily as a third arm. However, she rarely uses it for full contests of pure strength and force. She is obviously capable of physical augmentation, which she has used effectively for stamina and greater acrobatic ability. She is very skilled with telekinesis, and he has used it to even lift speeders over large distances, which is no easy feat. She also has great precision and has telekinetically dislodged some fruit that she was choking on when at a marketplace on Klaatu. Perhaps the most impressive thing with her telekinesis is the versatility with which she employs it. She has used it to manipulate her shikar in combat. While her hands were bound, she's thrown an ammonia tank, she's thrown sand at her opponent, Ari Ross, to distract in combat, and she's done the same thing with small rocks. This combination of raw talent and creative uses makes for a very dangerous combination. She has also shown proficiency with lightning, which has varied greatly in strength. She has used it to distract Jaina Solo and Ben Skywalker in combat, who blocked it with their lightsabers, and she has unsuccessfully used it to attack Abeloth. However, she's also successfully managed to attack Abeloth with it, when Abeloth was fighting in 3 other locations. Likewise, Vestara held off Abeloth briefly, one-on-one, during that. Perhaps her greatest abilities are her telepathic abilities. Not the more active mind tricks or communication, but rather hiding her own intentions and finding out those of others. She has perceived Abeloth's true form when the entity was first discovered by the Sith, a feat that none of her allies, including her master, Lady Rhea, could accomplish. She has also managed to attack and kill High Lord Sarasu Talon, surprising both him, Abeloth, and Luke Skywalker. Similarly, when she attacked Luke with a telekinetic swing of her shikar after he bound her hands, she seemingly caught him by surprise and sliced across his face. This was in reality a ploy by Skywalker to use a Dathomirian blood trail on her, but it nevertheless demonstrates her speed. She has also been extremely good at deception, tricking the Skywalkers on countless occasions with her lies. While these abilities may be more social than combative at first appearance, they indicate her strong connection to the Force, and also include a high capability when it comes to hiding her intentions, which is particularly valuable in combat. It gives her an element of surprise, which is especially valuable when you consider her lightsaber style. On the whole, Vestara Khai clearly has a strong connection to the Force and is particularly talented with both telekinesis and hiding her intentions. The former she is particularly creative with and has used it for a variety of purposes in combat. She is also capable of Force lightning. Kit Fisto is a powerful Force user, as indicated by his status as a consular. This isn't a guess based on his green lightsaber. This is a confirmed fact. As such, he has a multitude of powerful examples indicating his power in the Force. He has a strong knack for telekinesis, throwing around multiple submersibles like ragdolls during the first battle of Mon Cala. While this was underwater, telekinesis is telekinesis. While he somewhat incorporates it into his lightsaber attacks, it is very important to note that this isn't his norm. He preached restraint to his former Padawan, Nadar Veb, who force-pushed a battle droid as he defeated it with his lightsaber. To me, this says that he will only combine the Force into his saber techniques when he deems it completely necessary. For example, force-pushing General Grievous in between lightsaber attacks. This successfully knocked down the General. To me, this is a quite impressive feat, considering how rare it is for Grievous to be successfully knocked down telekinetically. I would guess that magnetized feet and extremely strong metal joints make such attacks very difficult. The fact that a Force roar from Roarin Karab knocked down an army of super battle droids but couldn't stop Grievous speaks to how hard it is to push him down. Thus, what Fisto accomplished was truly impressive. Like Vestara Khai, he also clearly has skill with physical augmentation, becoming like a blur in combat with highly impressive acrobatics. That he seems to incorporate very fluidly into his martial arts. He has alright telepathic abilities, and mind tricks are perfectly within his scope of abilities. Still, he's nothing special in this department.
Much of his abilities are strictly available underwater. One of these is an extension of telekinesis, manipulating water currents, thus indirectly throwing around his enemies. He also has a much more unique power, one that has only been witnessed once. This ability, named the Force Water Orb, is sort of an equivalent to kinetite, but underwater. Acting as a telekinetically reinforced bubble, this orb seems to be able to pierce through metal and even shields, so it is quite powerful. While neither of these abilities will help him in combat against Khai, they nevertheless demonstrate his relatively advanced skill set. It's easy to criticize Fisto for this extreme focus on underwater abilities. I would argue that what he did was smart. He's a Nautilin. He's going to go on a lot of underwater assignments. And if he's going to spend so much time underwater, he might as well become very good at it. While he may seem more like a Guardian based on his comparatively superior lightsaber skills, there are a few possible explanations for this. First, his lightsaber skills could indeed be superior, and he simply changed paths. Perhaps he thought the Force was his calling when he was young, only to later decide that his lightsaber skills would be more important. It is also possible that his water abilities have been drastically underrated. There's no real point to compare them to, so I can't really guess their difficulty. Especially based on his lack of demonstration to such great power, I'll assume his saber skills are indeed superior. Regardless, Kit Fisto is still clearly a strong Force user with powerful telekinetic abilities. While he also boasts great powers when underwater, they are unfortunately irrelevant in this sort of a contest. Comparing the two, both are clearly quite high-level Force users. Still, it's hard to figure out the limit for either's powers. Both have a great contrast in their willingness and ability to incorporate the Force into lightsaber combat, and that gives a major edge to Vestara. When you look at raw power, the comparison seems to go more in Fisto's favor. Vestara has moved a speeder, Kit has thrown around multiple submarines. Fisto knocked down Grievous, Khai hasn't demonstrated a ton of success in direct telekinetic attacks. When it comes down to telekinetic abilities, Fisto seems to have the edge in terms of magnitude. However, Vestara definitely has more creativity, and she does much more than her opponent to make the most of her telekinetic abilities. When it comes to telepathy, her consistent demonstration of being able to hide her intentions and deceive is indicative of much stronger power. Still, how valuable is this in a fight? She doesn't have anything that can directly dominate Fisto's mind or even hinder his concentration. Further supporting the argument for Kit Fisto is that the talent is simply undeniable. Whether it is completely accurate or not, the fact that he's a counselor indicates that his Force powers can't be that far behind his lightsaber skills. His unique powers underwater support the idea that he may be much more powerful than one would think. Defensively, there isn't a ton of indication either way for Fisto, simply because he hasn't been attacked. I think that probably speaks to somewhat superior defensive abilities, as opponents don't bother attacking with the Force. Vestara's ability to hold off Abeloth, even if she was distracted, even if it was brief, still shows impressive skill in this department. Vestara can hide her intentions well, which gives a helpful aspect of surprise, and her Force lightning is always nice. Of course,
it is relatively easily blocked by a lightsaber in most cases, so this isn't a huge advantage. Telekinesis is more important, of course, but Fisto's advantage in it isn't that huge. Based on feats, he's better than Khai, but not by a ton. He also probably has an edge with physical augmentation. While Kai's Force Lightning, more creative applications, and ability to hide her intentions are all nice, Fisto's greater telekinetic power is enough to grant a slight edge. In a pure contest of their force powers, Kit Fisto is probably going to come out on top. That being said, these powers aren't being used in a vacuum. Perhaps more important is their comparative skills when it comes to using them during a duel. And to use the Force effectively during a duel, creativity is vital. Furthermore, Fisto's restraint makes him actively avoid usage of the Force. We don't know a ton about Fisto's defenses against direct telekinetic attacks, but does it matter? That simply isn't how Vestara operates. Indirect uses are much more her style. When it comes to the practical application of their powers, she is leaps and bounds ahead of Fisto, regardless of his somewhat superior strength. He wins in a contest of purely the Force, but she is better using it within the context of a duel, if that makes sense. This has to be taken with a grain of salt, because it depends greatly on how you define Force powers. But I award the edge to Vestara Khai for Force powers. Well, here we are. And now, the verdict. Obviously, Kit Fisto seems like he has an edge based on how he can beat Vestara in a straight-up duel and beat her in a competition of pure Force powers, both on this basis of superior skill. The recurring theme to me is Kit Fisto's superior skill against Vestara Khai making her somewhat lesser skills go farther. Kit is by far the more skilled duelist, but Vestara makes it much closer through her better tactics and better armament. Likewise, Fisto has more power in the Force, but Khai makes more of her powers through more cunning and varied uses. One of the big advantages that shifts towards Vestara is that she combines Force powers into dueling much better than her opponent. As such, Kit's advantage in the Force matters little. Somewhat like Cornyn Horn's philosophy, he is unwilling to use it. On the other hand, Vestara has no such reservations. Her use of the Force will give an edge when they duel, which could be enough to offset Fisto's superior skill. I think it's safe to say that Fisto will show much more initiative, and Vestara will let him dictate the fight as he chooses early on. This means a pure lightsaber duel where Fisto unleashes his random flurry of attacks on Vestara. Recognizing a quality opponent, she'll definitely give ground so as to avoid getting cut down by Fisto. She'll use the Force to somewhat even the odds, as Fisto, not finding himself in any obvious danger, will avoid use of the Force. This probably means the occasional telekinetic attack to keep him on his toes, or some bursts of Force Lightning to give her time to recover from Fisto's impressive offensive. While she waits for an opportunity, I don't think she's going to find one easily against such a high-quality opponent. And, recognizing Fisto's superior martial skill in a fair fight, Khai will likely choose to switch things up. Likely nearly backed into a wall, her clever usage of Force powers will probably be enough to force Kit Fisto to back off, thus giving her a chance to recover. Switching tactics, she'll try to draw on the Force. We've already established how this goes. Kit Fisto is simply too good with his telekinetic powers. The two will likely be throwing stuff as well as directly pushing each other, a situation where Fisto gets the edge. Considering his greater durability, Fisto likely comes out of this portion of the battle with little to no wounds. Vestara, on the other hand, could be hurting a bit more. Or, perhaps, she merely recognizes that she isn't going to beat Fisto with the Force. Mostly concerned with staying alive, she'll likely attempt a fighting retreat either way. And Kit Fisto will press the attack more than ever. Seeing his recklessness, Khai will realize that Fisto may not be as great as she once thought. As such, she will be trying to make a single counterattack, one that can get past Fisto's defenses. As her defeat seems more and more inevitable, Khai will likely come up with a plan for this final attack. I think the outcome of this attack decides the battle. If it goes well, she either kills Fisto with it, disarms him and goes on to win, or sets up an easy second attack to beat Fisto. If not, she either puts herself in position to be easily cut down, or, at best for Vestara, her opportunity is lost, and Fisto goes on to win. There are countless factors to decide this final attack. She is very skilled at incorporating the Force into her attacks in clever ways, but Fisto is still better as a pure martial artist. Fisto may be reckless, but he is also relatively skilled with defense. Vestara may be excellent at hiding her intentions, but Kit can sense pheromones via his tentacles. Vestara may have many weapons available to do this with, but she still has a track record with some failures at this sort of thing. The deciding factor in this, though, is that Vestara's technique is optimized for this sort of situation. This is how she fights, and she is well practiced with it. The Nautilin moves swiftly, so even as she backflips up to the balcony to escape him, he is already leaping in the air to pursue. Crossing blades multiple times throughout their leap, the two follow each other on the way up. Still favoring her uninjured right leg, she manages to land with Fisto in front of her, and a handful of available meters to retreat. But Fisto is relentless, and his randomized strikes quickly drive her back. But then, his lunge, pointing towards her face, overextends by centimeters, and his weight crosses slightly beyond his front foot. A rare opportunity indeed. It's now or never. Enacting a plan she's had in mind for about 10 seconds, Vestara Khai finally makes her move. Grabbing some of the cable wound up on a spool beneath the balcony, she pulls it with ease, bringing it taut just behind Fisto's front foot. Quickly, too quickly, the Jedi Master steps back, correcting his previous misstep, and he is caught in her trap. He begins to lose balance, but with extreme skill he is quickly adjusting, regaining balance almost immediately. Almost. And in that time, Vestara makes her move. In just a fraction of a second, she has already leapt up into the air over Fisto, telekinetically thrown her shikar at his gut, and begun to swing her lightsaber at his neck. Fisto is good, though. He stops her shikar with the Force, then quickly swings his saber to defend. Both blades move like lightning, but Fisto is too slow. Instead of intercepting her attack with his blade, his hilt is in the way once Vestara's lightsaber comes down. She cuts through the hilt like butter, and her blade doesn't stop as it makes its way through Fisto in a diagonal slash. Vestara lands on her feet, heaving, and looks down at the decapitated Fisto in relief. I declare Vestara Khai the winner. Thanks for watching, of course, and feel free to talk more about this matchup in the comments. Sorry if you're a Fisto fan. I feel like I sold Fisto's skill pretty hard, and I'll admit that I have no real idea as to how accurately I rated Vestara. She's hard to judge simply because her opponents are hard to rate as well. Translating between eras is difficult. Anyway, that's really all I have to say, so I'll see you in the next one. Bye, guys.